Hey everybody, it's CJ. Big news for you today. Kyle and I love doing this podcast so much that we spun it off. It's called Mostly Growth. You can find it on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, even those really weird ones that I'm not sure people use, like Stitcher and Pocket something or other. On Mostly Growth, we talk everything top-line success at tech companies. That includes pricing and packaging, unit economics, AI trends, and the inner workings of the best business models. This show is full of candid insights for CEOs, CFOs, CROs, and anyone aspiring to the C-suite. Episodes will continue for now to air here every Saturday, but you can get Mostly Growth a day earlier by subscribing there. We'll also start releasing episodes exclusively on the Mostly Growth channel. So like twice as much growth. Well, yeah, mostly. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe. Without further ado, here's the episode. I feel like the rent is too damn high, party.
Too damn high.
The price of iced coffee is too damn high.
Every app is starting to look more or less the same. A big prompt bar. Are we going to see this in Canva, Clay, Apollo? Is this coming to the McDonald's app?
I'm sorry for anyone who attends a dinner and wants to take a picture of everybody at the table.
A sea of white dudes with bad lighting.
Sad people in Brooks Brothers button-ups, a shared plate of calamari, one IPA.
I've never seen such an epic data set be so ruined by bad visualization.
Why is that so thin? What's going on with the orange bar?
This company called Fixer. You get an hour back every day from an AI email assistant.
Imagine like it's two fixers and they're just profusely thanking each other.
Then all of a sudden the AIs fall in love. Oh,
Yeah.
modern love story.
We're on a chain. We're saying, what do we want to talk about this week? But at the bottom it says, this response was generated using AI. What's your reaction when you read that?
That's an interesting question.
Is this thing on?
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Welcome back to, I think we're calling this Mostly Growth. You've got CJ, your host. You've got Kyle Poyar, the ghost of Christmas past. And you got our trusty producer, Ben the Benevolent.
1, 2, 1, 2.
I was really going for Ghost of Christmas Future, but I'll take past.
I'm just giving him shit. He upgraded because the people loved our last episode so much. He went out and bought himself a fancy camera and made him look translucent. You just got to go back to the old Logitech, right?
I think that's the problem with cameras that are too true to life, is that no one actually wants to see what I look like in real life and how ghastly pale I am.
At the top, this wasn't on the call sheet. How many coffees do you gentlemen drink a day?
2.5, because I do decaf.
Okay.
2 real ones, 1 decaf.
I call it 2, but I drink a cold brew concentrate that's supposed to be watered down by it's like 3x as strong as regular coffee. So it looks like 2, but I am fully caffeinated at all
You're
times.
drinking the concentrate, dude?
Oh yeah, I put like a splash of milk in there so it doesn't look like a crazy dark muddy color, but I put like a splash of milk in a concentrated cold brew.
Just straight gas, homie. That's crazy. I rip Nespressos all day. It's kind of ratchet, but I make it over ice. I put it in a Yeti. I run the numbers show mug, but this is the first time ever I've poorly timed the supply and demand in my house. And so I found myself 2 days without coffee. So I've been going to Starbucks up the street, but I keep ordering from the wrong store on the app. So Kyle, you're a product person here. You understand how these apps work. Look, they're getting aggressive with these names now. My name is CJ Wrong Store.
I love that. The whole spiel is they're going to write your name down on the cup to try to get you back in the store. I did go a few weeks ago. This was in Portugal, but I went and they had no idea how to spell Kyle. I think they came up with CAOL, which I don't know where that came from.
Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. You may know that we use Campfire as our ERP at my company, Mostly Media, and it's been a game changer for our finance workflow, coming from the guy who does it all. The interface is intuitive, migration was quick and painless, and it's freed me up to focus on strategic work instead of manual processes, making content for you. In case you don't know, Campfire is an AI-first ERP powering next-gen finance and accounting teams. They help you close fast, unlock insights, and scale smarter. Seriously, the metrics and P&L views that I'm pumping out of the system are nuts. And you can tell this thing is scalable for companies who have multiple entities, complex department hierarchies, in various product lines. If you're curious about where finance tech is heading, I am, and would like to hear more of my thoughts on the topic, don't miss Campfire's Finance Forward AI Summit, the upcoming summit bringing together the sharpest minds in finance and operations. You'll hear directly from industry leaders on how they're using AI to shape the future of finance and how your team can get ahead of that curve. I'll be speaking on panels with finance leaders from Anthropic, Snowflake, Mercury, and more. The summit is October 28th in San Francisco. I hope to see you there. Sign up for the summit at campfiresummit.ai or learn more about Campfire at www.campfire.ai. All right. Well, we're caffeinated. All right, Ben, keep us honest here. What do we get on tap for today?
Yeah, first up, the Navan IPO. I'm sure we got some thoughts about that.
Yeah, CJ, you tried to start a travel company, didn't you? Is this the CJ and Navan IPO roadshow?
I lost like $209,412.74 of my own money. Thank you for asking. Not that I'm counting or bitter about it at all. I tried to start a last-minute tours and activity marketplace. So it was basically like you step off the airplane and like you want to figure out what there is to do that day because like the inventory is fleeting. Like if you have a whale watch that's going out with 4 extra seats on it, like that goes away if you don't fill that 2 p.m. slot. And there's this thing called global distribution systems in the background, which are the real-time feeds for basically the airlines, for car rentals, for hotels. And so they were just starting to create one for tours and activities that you could patch together through these booking systems. So me and my wife worked on that for over 2.5 years. That's how I ended up in Florida for a number of years because there's like stuff to do year round. That didn't work out, but like I learned a ton about the travel industry and how complex it is to build something that has live inventory. And so Navan, like needless to say, this on steroids. So for those who don't know, Navan is the artist formerly known as Trip Actions. It's travel and expenses or what you would call T&E, travel and entertainment. I think that's what the cool kids call it in FP&A these days. And basically, they created a great way for you to book your corporate travel in like a way that made sense. So a lot of people have used Expensify, which is kind of like travel, but mostly expense management. Other people have used things like SAP Concur has one that's pretty difficult to use. And basically, it's never been a good experience. And so they are going public, but they emerged after COVID as not just a travel company. They reinvented themselves as a full stack expense management company. They play in a lot of sandboxes now. They do the travel, they do the expense management, and then they also do the corporate cards. And what's interesting about this IPO is it's going to test the lower end in terms of size and efficiency.
So you say lower end. This is a company that did 600+ million in revenue in the last year. And this is the lower end of the IPO market these days?
Yeah, so they did 613 million, growing at 32%. I looked at the median of the last 14 companies, and the median is 813 million. So they're about 200 million short of that in terms of size. So they have the growth rate to get there, but they're also burning net operating basis, lost 80 million, burnt a large whack of cash in the actually since their existence. So this is going to be a fascinating one.
So now, I remember back in my day, back in 2021 or so, companies were going public with, 150, 200, 250 million run rate. What happened? Why is the bar so much higher now for what revenue companies need to have a successful IPO?
So it's kind of like what size of a rowboat do you want to be in if there is turbulence in the market, if there are waves? And if you think about how companies are valued on an NTM basis, that's your next 12 months of revenue. If you forecast them out, let's say they grow 25%, just to be conservative here, that puts them in the 740 million ballpark. And if you multiply that out by like a healthy fintech multiple, that comes in probably around $8 billion, okay? If you fall below $5 billion, it's hard for larger investors like a T. Rowe Price, a Fidelity to get in and out of your stock without moving it too much. And also, in order for them to get out of bed in the morning, they have to have a percentage of your company that is meaningful enough on an absolute dollar basis. So if you think about it, like, and we looked into this a couple weeks ago, like, yes, you can have a great company that's doing $100 million and you technically could go public, but it's a riskier proposition because you have a lot less wiggle room if things deteriorate in the macro markets.
Yeah. So the spoiler for folks is basically you can have a great company, but if it's not worth a certain amount of money or you don't have a certain amount that investors can buy up, just structurally based on supply and demand, your valuation could get hit, your stock price could dip, not based on anything that you're doing wrong, just based on the dynamics of how people like to invest.
Exactly. And it's even a riskier proposition if you're burning money. So if you look at Navan's rule of 40, it's well below 40. So if you were to use net operating loss, it's around 20. If you were to actually use free cash flow, it's in the high single digits. And so like investors, when times get tough, they look for companies that can de-risk because they're spitting off cash flow. And so it's kind of like, what do you want your valuation to be to have some wiggle room there?
So you're telling me revenue's not that high for new IPOs. Growth rate isn't that high for new IPOs. It's not really that profitable. And so efficient growth isn't that high. There's a real test to see, is the software IPO market back and are investors actually interested in the category? Because it's not really when you see the best companies go public that you get, the test results back. It's when you see the average company go public that you see the results.
And look, they're still solving like a hard problem. I wouldn't say it's game-changing technology in the sense that like they invented something that just like wasn't around before, but like in the T&E space, it's kind of a dusty old space that isn't that exciting, and I think they have a new take on it. Are people willing to bet that they have enough cool stuff in store? And my main takeaway is like, how fast can you get to $1 billion in revenue? Like, is that within the next 12 months, 18 months, 24 months? Because I think at that point, you've set yourself up to be kind of like with the big dogs and insulated enough.
Yeah, I remember when I was in consulting like 15 years ago, we used Concur. It was probably the worst product I've ever used. And that is still the dominant player in the space. And I think the product's gotten probably worse, not better, now that they're owned by SAP. A couple other things I thought were interesting, CJ, that I'm curious to get your take on. One, this business, 90% of their revenue is usage-based. Now, how are investors going to respond to that?
I'm so glad you called that out because like you said, it's they get a VIG on everything that comes through. That's the cool kid term for like a take rate. So they basically get 7% of everything that goes through. That's a lot higher than like a traditional credit card company. But then again, it's predicated on the throughput of the system. And it's not going to receive a pure play SaaS multiple. So you can't say, oh, well, it should get the same multiple, like all things in a bubble, like as Figma, if it had the same revenue and the same growth rate and the same cash flow, because it's not as sticky. Now, they do have this 10% that comes from the expense management system. And what's nice about that, I think they said 30% of their customers are on all three products, which is great. It shows multi-product attach and helps your net dollar retention go up, which they said is above 110%. But if something like COVID came along again, like that's a huge shock to the system. And it's very driven by how much like people want to be in real life, like how much sales are still done hand to hand in person.
Yeah, I think to me, I look at usage-based companies, and there's some companies where the usage-based is project-based or discretionary, right? Like people are choosing whether to use the product. And then there's companies where it's usage-based, so it does fluctuate a bit, but this is a top-down requirement. They're going after an enterprise customer where there's diversified use across the company. Ultimately, for many of those businesses, these are very sticky products, high gross retention, net negative churn businesses. And so even though they're usage-based and there could be something like COVID happening again that would bring revenue close to zero, in general, it's a pretty sticky form of usage-based revenue. It's something that I would think investors could value as if it's subscription revenue.
Some people crap on me because they say this all the time, but like there's a difference between recurring and reoccurring. So like this is very much reoccurring revenue that like it happens frequently, just not at the same price point, not at the same cadence, but we know it is going to happen, like outside some like exogenous shock, like people are going to travel. Will it fluctuate between a flight that is $400 and $800? Yes, of course. But like we know that is true, that people will keep traveling.
Yeah, a couple other fun facts for folks that didn't read the S1, didn't want to read the S1. This business has actually a good amount of people, so their revenue per employee is lower than average, but they've seen a 10 percentage point margin improvement as they've taken their customer support team and changed it from primarily people to increasingly AI-driven customer support. So fascinating margin improvement story from my vantage point. So on the sales side, most of their revenue comes from outbound. So there's a lot of talk about outbound being dead. It seems like outbound can still be quite powerful. In particular, in this market, they've got a strong product that has a multi-product value proposition. They've got a legacy incumbent. And so outbound really around this replacement story makes total sense to me. And the final thing that I just love to see that you shared was tell me about the story of their president and how he came to become president.
Dude, I want to be this guy, Michael, when I grow up. And maybe too late because I think I'm actually like a year and a half, 2 years older than him. This is
That's wild.
This is crazy. This guy started, Ben, if you scroll down, he started as a sales rep. He started as a sales rep and worked his way up over 9 years to become president of the company. So anyone who's out there listening right now who is like a BDR, just trying to cold call people to get them to buy the product, this guy walked the walk, and he's like named in the S1 as a key personnel, and you have to do like the top 4 highest paid people. Like he was one of them. This guy's an absolute rock star.
That is epic. You really don't see that. Hey, Ben, what do we got next?
Next up, seems like, I don't know if y'all have heard of this AI thing, but prompt bars are everywhere. Seems like it's kind of the death of the UX, or whether it's lovable, cursor, what have you. Is this a good thing? What's going on here?
So I keep checking out new AI tools, but also existing software tools. And it is incredible to me how many of them have just decided, instead of their point and click user interface, they're just going to put a big prompt bar. That's their app now, right? Every app is starting to look more or less the same. I mean, companies are billing themselves as cursor for X. I'm starting to think that not just are we going to see this in Canva, Clay, Apollo, but is this coming to the McDonald's app pretty soon? What do you think, CJ?
All right, wait, just to make this real for people, when you say a prompt bar, do you mean like it's a pop-up on the screen, or we're talking to it to get the value out of the product rather than like poking around and clicking stuff?
I mean, well, Lovable's a great example. So you go to Lovable's website, right? Their tagline is build something lovable. You just start typing what you want the AI to build. The AI will build it for you, right? And so if you're Canva, you start typing, I want to make an image that looks like X. If you're Clay, I want to create a workflow that does Y. For Apollo, it might be, I want to find buyers at X kinds of companies. But the user experience is starting to just look like a blank box that you type stuff into that AI is supposed to do something for you. And, I'm torn about this personally. And every product is starting to look more or less the same to me.
I may be zigging when you're zagging here, but sometimes I feel like the company Drift was just like born in the wrong era, because it's kind of like taking like a customer support chatbot and just making it like the actual product. Just like, tell me what you want and we'll do it.
Exactly. I mean, that's fully what it is. And that's, in some ways, like for ChatGPT, there's this magical experience. I think also for many people that have tried vibe coding tools like a Lovable, a Bolt, a Cursor, a V0, there's something really cool about you have an idea for something you want to build, and then all of a sudden the AI is just like building it for you in real time. But I think it went from this like novelty, and it was really cool to see it in one place, to now that it's everywhere. Like, I'm getting real prompt anxiety. Like, I feel like I have to be telling the product what to do, right? And for a lot of products, like, I have not used these things before. I don't know what to do. I need a little bit of guidance. And I personally think prompt anxiety is going to become the new performance anxiety.
I love that you just coined a term there, prompt anxiety. I hadn't heard that before. I get anxiety like when I walk into like a retail store, like, and I have to actually go up and ask somebody where something's located, or ask to try on a pair of shoes. Like, that totally resonates. It's not that it's shifting like agency per se, but I do think it's putting more of a burden on the user to like figure out what they want from something, like to be very direct about it.
Exactly. Like, we used to think about tools as, we're Salesforce, we're a CRM. Here's how you use the CRM, right? They're opinionated, right? The user experience is point and click, but there's boundaries to it, right? And it's pretty hard to mess up if you follow the instructions. With these AI products, the really cool thing is the creativity aspect of it. But the challenging thing is, like, I think more and more people are looking at this and they have this blank sheet problem of, they go knowing that there's a problem they want solved, but they don't know how to describe it. They don't necessarily know how to write for a prompt, right? So a lot of the prompts are going to be kind of meh in the beginning. There's going to be a lot of instances where people don't know what they don't know. And so they don't even know what's possible with these tools. So how could they possibly describe what to do if they don't know what you can do?
Steve Jobs is famous for saying, and I'm probably going to screw up the quote, but basically like people know what problem they have, but they don't know what solution they need. It's our job to give them that solution. And to your point, Kyle, it's like you have to come to now this blank sheet, this blank box with both your problem, but also try to come up with a solution where like this thing has seen more iterations than you have. It could probably suggest like a workflow to get there.
Exactly. And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying every single company, someone has told the product manager at just about every software company that like Lovable grew to 100 million revenue really fast. We've got to copy their user experience like immediately and make our product look AI native. If it has a point and click interface, it doesn't look AI native enough. I'm fascinated to see where this goes because it starts to feel like one of those things that it is just going to end up in the McDonald's app, in your bank app, in your food delivery app, insert app here. But when I look at these experiences, I think this is maybe a short-term phenomenon. I don't think this is the best we can do from a user experience perspective. And if I've looked at some of the better products, what they do is they think about user experiences like the product education needs to start before someone ever hits the website, right? Like your user needs to actually come to your product armed with the idea about how to use it. And that's where with Lovable, I think having when you look at their website, about half of their website real estate is devoted to just user-generated examples and templates of what people have built with Lovable. So when you scroll below the prompt bar, it's just a bunch of examples that help you figure out what the heck to do with this thing. I'm also seeing a lot of these products help you improve your prompt. So before they actually go start doing the thing, they will suggest improvements to start, teaching you what you can do with the product. Kind of like Granola, the note-taking app has like a one-click enhance notes option. And I think the final thing from my perspective is that the best of these products treat the agent experience as kind of the user experience. And so what I mean by the agent experience is when you go to type something in, you start to build a relationship with the thing that's doing the work for you, right? So if the agent is saying, hey, let me clarify a few questions, or hey, let me suggest a few ideas for you based on what you typed in, that person almost becomes your like concierge in the product. And I'd love to even think about like what's possible with this model of, does this agent kind of become the sales rep too? Do they recommend what plan you should buy, how much you should pay, when you should upgrade, why you should upgrade? It's fascinating to think about that opportunity to use this real estate from just like a defensive play, we got to add AI, to more of an offensive play.
I love it. Ben, what do we got on tap next?
Yeah. So next up, referral programs. Are they a Ponzi scheme? Is it all just a racket, or is it the last efficient growth channel?
Ooh, let me ask you, DJ, do you have got a referral program for Mostly Metrics, and how much money can I get for referring people over?
Ooh, for you, I got to do some LTV to CAC on the back of this napkin over here. I do, and I actually have mixed feelings on it because part of it, so what I've been doing is for any CFO that comes on the podcast and they do a shout out on LinkedIn or they refer me a guest, I send them a Yeti mug with the show logo on it, which is pretty cool. And then I was doing this promotion where if somebody shared the Run the Numbers podcast in their Slack channel, a Slack channel had more than 25 people on it, and they just screenshotted and showed me, I would send them this nice running hat. It's a CLA. If anybody's into running, like they cost like more than $50 per hat. So it was actually a pretty expensive referral thing, maybe silly in retrospect. But like, I do think it was kind of cool to put something in the hands of people who are passionate about something and just like see that it resonated. So to me, it was less about like getting actual subscribers or listeners out of it, but just like showing the people who cared most about my thing that I appreciated them, and to see that they were excited about it and wearing it or drinking coffee out of it. So like, that's not the CFO answer, because like I couldn't really track the ROI, but I know that one referral program that both of us have benefited from in the past is like newsletter referrals.
Yeah, I think referrals, it's such a fascinating thing because I looked at, there's new data from the team at Emergence Capital. They have a new report called Beyond Benchmarks. And one of the things they asked everyone that took the survey, share what percentage of their marketing spend was driven by different marketing channels. And they had what percentage of your new revenue came from different channels. Referral programs were actually the most efficient source out there. So they were 7% of marketing spend, but generated 14% of new revenue. The closest thing in terms of overall impact on new revenue was events, which brought in 15% of new revenue, but cost 19% of marketing spend to do it. So it was, almost 3x the cost per acquisition, essentially. And so that tells me like there's something here, right, where referral programs could be this extremely efficient channel. And like, why wouldn't we spend more on it if it works? But then I'm struck where it's really hard to scale it. Like your super fans that love what you're doing, they're probably going to refer people to you regardless of if you pay them to do it, right? And like, I think it's hard to come up with things beyond just money that convince someone to start talking up your product. Like there's this sort of famous example of getting an NPS survey for your washing machine, right? And it's like, how likely are you going to be to recommend your washing machine to a friend? It's like, I'm not out here talking about how good my washing machine is to people. If like your washing machine company were to try to pay you $100 to refer someone to buy a washing machine, you'd be like, I just don't know people looking for one. I think it's really challenging to take this insight and turn it into a next, efficient growth channel.
I look at referral programs as like akin to account-based marketing, ABM marketing, but just like done by someone who doesn't work at the company. It's like a direct one-to-one motion and you have to be willing to pay more for it. But like what I also question, and you brought up, like they're probably going to refer you anyway, like how much you have to pay them to get out of bed in the morning? Like, is it $100? Is it $1,000? Like, I just don't even know where to start.
I think you sound like my parents.
But do they like their washing machine?
Do I've got to pay my kids an allowance just for cleaning up their room?
What feels Ponzi scheme-ish about it?
So what feels Ponzi scheme about it is that, when you look at data like this, you start going, well, I should just be spending more money on my referral program. Like, it's working. It's the most efficient thing I do. Let's up this referral incentive more. And I just signed up for a product. Before I even finished signing up for it, they were offering me $50 for inviting one of my colleagues to sign up as well. And so I just think about like, how much are you going to ratchet up these incentives? And it starts to feel like, from a user perspective, hey, let's just, if we're going to start collecting all of this money or these credits from people, let's just keep finding people that we can convince to sign up, even if they have no real intention of sticking around. And let's try to game as many of these referral programs as possible.
Do you know who the Ponzi scheme is named after?
I would guess someone named Ponzi, but I have no idea.
Charles Ponzi. And Ben, you can look this up. I'm pretty sure he was doing it with matches. So he was getting people to invest in like physical matches in like the 1800s or something. The modern day equivalent to a lot of this would be a company like an Amway, or what are some of the other ones that are more well known?
Oh man, I feel like I've watched like so many Amazon Prime or like HBO Max shows about the Ponzi schemes gone bad. I mean, there's so many of them that ultimately, like if you think about Tupperware or like makeup products or clothing, like there's so many of these programs that have often like preyed on housewives in particular. Their customers become their marketing. But I think there's like a really fine line between incentivizing your customers to share what you're doing and then essentially preying on your customers and making it so that they have to keep finding more and more people to promote your product to.
But you brought up something that I think is important to separate. It's the structure of the referral program. Like, is this like schemers be scheming, right? But then there's the timing of it, of when you ask somebody to refer them, and like not a great time to ask for a referral when they haven't tried your product and they're still onboarding.
Exactly. I think to me, like best practices, my 2 cents are like, ask for the referral after someone has seen value. And ideally, at a time that just feels really natural. So if they've just gotten an output that looks really great or generated a report that has all these great insights, that's an amazing time to ask for the referral. I also think there's like a lot of low-hanging fruit you can do that's not asking for the referral, but just asking someone to share your product in front of more people. I think your Slack idea was a good one of like, hey, can you post my podcast in a Slack channel with at least 25 people and take a screenshot of it? Like that's not necessarily a direct referral, but it's like exposing your product to people that could benefit from it. And it just feels a little lower lift for the customer. And in many cases, like it actually drives better exposure for the brand. I think, a great example on something like this that I've seen is Brex. Like, I don't know if you've ever been on one of those Brex billboard campaigns, but they're everywhere in Times Square. They're featuring like Brex customer is awesome and they're powered by Brex. And I think that's a really cool way to like show off your customers in cool places like Times Square that they get excited about it. And then that's going to naturally encourage your customer to be like, oh shit, I'm on Times Square. I'm going to take a photo of this, share it on LinkedIn, send it to my friends. All of a sudden, your customers are out referring you business, and it's because you kind of did them a solid by giving them exposure.
I like what you said there. You make them the star of the show, and I think that pays huge dividends.
So when do you need to disclose something that is AI generated? Only if it's bad? How much of this podcast is AI generated? I'll let you find out.
Are you AI generated? You know, this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I honestly don't have a great answer for it. So I'm curious, CJ, like where are you using AI? Whether it's like podcast, newsletter, like where do you use AI today?
Whew. I use AI to help me get my question list into a coherent flow. So I come up with the questions myself for guests. So I'll be interviewing a CFO because I firmly believe you have to be in the guts of something to like get the if you know, then you know type question. So I will like listen to everything that they've ever been on. So if they've been on 8 podcasts, I'll listen to them all. I'll listen on like 2-speed, super caffeinated. I'll write down tons of shit. And then I'll look online, pulling stuff from their bio. And then after I'll be like, take these ideas and like help me get it into a flow that's like logical and doesn't sound like a crazy person. So I use AI there. And I'm like, I don't think I need to disclose that the question flow came from AI. But like if I was looking like for medical advice, like does this look infected or like am I showing signs of diabetes? Like I would probably want to know, I don't know, the advice that someone was giving me was AI generated. So I don't know like where you draw the line necessarily between like efficiency in your workflows versus like this is actually like a critical thought that you're going to make a either business or health or life decision on.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question for me. And I was recently meeting a company that spins up 100+ new ad creatives each sprint, and they post those across YouTube, Instagram, you know, all Meta properties and a bunch of other places online. And many of these include like video avatars or AI generated voice, like so fake actors that are meant to look like real people saying something. In some cases, they're just like clones of someone that works at the company. And I think about, well, it's an ad. And so, you know, ads are always paid to be produced. Someone's paying the actor. Like you're not necessarily disclosing that. It's kind of assumed. And so do you need to disclose that it's like not even a real person? The boundaries are really getting pretty confusing to me.
I get the ick from that. Like I'd want to know that is not Reese Witherspoon giving like that ad read. It is like generated. I don't know. I don't know where you draw the line there. That makes me feel a little weird. Like I'm getting tricked. Feels like I'm being tricked. That's what I'm trying to say.
If you're taking the AI output as is and trusting it to be right, you probably want to disclose that it's AI so that if there's a hallucination or it gets something wrong, like you're kind of off the hook. You're like, this isn't from, I didn't verify this. This is what AI told me. And in some cases, it can actually seem more objective that way. Like sometimes you could feed qualitative quotes or something into AI and have AI like summarize the output and be like, this isn't for me. This is what AI said. But then if it's an input into your process and you're actually reviewing what it's doing, or if it's like a low stakes thing, it's probably just assumed that people should be using AI if they're not already.
You know how sometimes you get an email and at the bottom, the person hasn't taken the footer thing off and it says this email was sent using iPhone? How would you feel, Kyle, if me and Ben were on a chain, we're saying, what do we want to talk about this week? And you see all this stuff, it's like, oh, that's great. But at the bottom, it says this response was generated using AI. What's your reaction when you read that?
That's an interesting question. I guess my starting point would be like, is it a good quality response or not? And like, if it's a good thought, I may be more okay with it saying AI, but also I'm kind of like, there's a status thing where I'm like, oh, I'm not good enough to respond to directly. Like he's looping in his AI assistant. It's a tough one. But like to that point, actually, you brought up a good point. The like sent from my iPhone thing. So for a while, that actually generated great outbound responses. Like if you were to send someone an email and you kept the sent from my iPhone, people are like, oh, wow, they think I'm so important that they're responding to me like on their phone when they're busy, or like, you know, the BlackBerry message used to be that same equivalent back in the day. And so it's now become something that occasionally people manufacture where they add the sent from my iPhone, even if they actually didn't send it from their iPhone, so that people think of them think of the email as like more important or more special because it feels like it's delivered when someone shouldn't be sending an email.
Yeah, I feel like there are certain circumstances where, you know how there was the big pushback on Calendly at one point where it was like signaling that it's like, here's a link to my Calendly. And people are like, oh, so you think like you're at a higher status. I have to like play into your calendar now. I do think it's not the same vibe, but it may be like, I don't get your real time, or like, this isn't worth like your real brain power. I think it has to go past the point of like, these show notes are actually better than what human CJ could have came up with. Like, I'm actually glad he used AI.
Yeah, I think I guess that's the distinction is if it's better than what a human would do, I'm fine with it. So like with Calendly, I'm actually so happy if someone sends me their Calendly link. I would rather have someone send me their Calendly link and let me choose the time and also like reschedule whenever I want than me send them my Calendly link, which like they could just pick a time that I'm technically free, but I'm like, I was going to walk my dog then, or like, I was going to eat lunch at this time, or going to grab a coffee. With Calendly and other tools, like if the product makes the end user or the recipient's life better, you're like totally fine with it being AI. And I guess in this way, if it's faster, if it like is smarter than a person, takes less friction, you're probably happy if it's AI.
There's something to be said though about like the integrity of the actual information. And so do you remember like in middle school, the teachers would never let us use Wikipedia in the bibliography?
That is true. I think we had like an actual physical set of encyclopedias like on a bookshelf, which is just wild to think of that we had those. And I can't even imagine how many people still have like printed encyclopedias in their homes.
But like in middle school and high school, people would use Wikipedia and they'd be trying to pass it off like this is legit information, so you should accept it. What I've seen is the opposite, where people will sometimes, like I was reading a newsletter the other day from this finance person I really like, and he said, not completely sure about this, but according to ChatGPT, blah, 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 these stats, he was doing the opposite, saying, if this is wrong, do not blame me because I got it from AI.
Yeah, that's where it's a nice sort of get out of jail free. I didn't do the research. I didn't come up with this. Trust AI, if you will.
All right, guys, next up, we got a little segment for you. What did you see on LinkedIn this week? What were some business blunders?
I mean, I just keep seeing this, and I'm sorry for anyone who attends a dinner and like wants to take a picture of everybody at the table. But like these pictures never come out good, and I never look at them and say, oh, I really wish I was there. First off,
it's like a sea of white dudes with bad lighting, just feeling miserable.
Sad people in Brooks Brothers button-ups at a poorly lit table, enjoying a shared plate of calamari with like one IPA for them to share. Like the pictures never match the reality of like what you experienced in the moment. So like I have dinners all the time for CFOs. I make a point, maybe we'll change this once Ben comes and can take like a professional photo, but I make a point of never posting them because like when I scrolled through these photos, I was like, that looked like it sucked. Like I'm really glad I didn't go this Thursday, miss time with my family to be at like that dinner. And like the only thing more depressing to me than pictures of people at a work dinner are pictures of people at a work lunch. Like the salads didn't even want to be there. The lettuce is wilting. There's a lukewarm room temperature spindrift over here. It was clearly takeaway from Little Caesars down the street. Let's just say there wasn't a lot of money or foresight put into this.
Yeah, too real. I've seen a lot of those on LinkedIn as well. And then the only sadder thing is when they get like 3 likes and one of them is from the person who posted it.
Yeah, it was a great time. Thanks for bringing everyone together.
What I kept seeing on LinkedIn this week, and I could not avoid it, was this breakdown of ChatGPT conversations and like what people are actually doing on ChatGPT. Really cool data set, but I've never seen such an epic data set be so ruined by bad visualization. Like if you look at this chart, it looks like the rainbow, first of all, with like size 6 font. And then the categories make no sense at all. It'll be like specific information and then health, fitness, beauty, or self-care. Like it's just really mind-boggling. Now, these researchers had access to over 1.5 million ChatGPT conversations. Imagine how painful it is to analyze 1.5 million unstructured conversations to make sense out of it. Just if they could have taken like 1% of the time they did on the analysis on actually visualizing it in a way that was cool, this would have been my favorite thing. But for now, I think it's the LinkedIn blunder of the week.
It's almost like they're like, yo, we got the coolest data set of all time. You know, it'd be really cool if we didn't give a shit about the widths of the bar.
These widths are absolutely brutal.
Why is that so thin? What's going on with the orange bar?
Also, just like the names for the categories, greetings and chit chat.
Argument,
like, what?
Generation, people with their spouses, like what? And then the one next to it is edit or critique provided. This is bad.
They could have probably had AI do a much better job on it. I will say, if anyone follows Pete Walker from Carta, he took this chart and he did it like a proper visualization of it that went viral. Highly recommend you look at that. And it is like incredible what a difference some design sense makes to like complicated data.
They're like, no, we'll just skip the last step. We got the data, but nobody cares about the bar widths.
So bad.
All right, next up, CJ. I think you've got this one covered. What is a potentially reliable thing that you read at 2 a.m.?
All right, so I'm a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, and I've been reading his latest biography. I think he has like 50 of them at this point. Have either of you heard of the movie Twins he did with Danny DeVito?
Absolutely. That was an amazing movie.
So for those who haven't seen it, it was like a kind of a left turn from what he had been in before. He had been in Conan the Barbarian. He had been in Terminator. He plays like a jacked meathead in most of these movies, right? And so he wanted to get into comedies. And no one was willing to take a bet on them to say, like, I think you can be a leading man in one of these. And so what I'm fascinated by was the business construct they agreed to. So the movie, mind you, he's been in like some of the biggest blockbuster movies ever. The movie costs only $16 million to make. What him and Danny DeVito said was, don't pay us a salary. We are so confident this will be a hit that we will take a back end portion of the profits. So it took $16 million to make. They made $216 million gross on the movie. And the $200 million that was left over, Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the director got to split it up. They got to split up $80 million. And so out of all the movies that he's been in where he's collected a massive salary, he said to this date, Twins is the movie he made the most money off of.
That is just so smart. And also not a bad take rate. That's his take rate on that, 15%? 20%?
I just think it's like a badass move, to bet on yourself. Like he's always shown that throughout his career in anything he does. But like the movie industry in general, there have been a couple other cases of it. I think the movie industry is fascinating in terms of how they do these deals because a lot of the actors and directors, they just want like a huge chunk of money, which I don't blame you. There's something to be said about betting on yourself and saying, I know how big this is going to be. Because George Lucas in Star Wars, what he negotiated, he would get 100% of the merchandise from the show. So like to be that forward thinking and say like, all these kids are going to want like figurines of Luke Skywalker. Like that just boggles my mind. And it shows like he had an incredible business sense. And the same thing with Steven Spielberg for Jaws. Like he negotiated a residual deal too, where he made way more off of like owning the IP and getting a back end of the deal than he would have just being a director.
Yeah, amazing in hindsight. I'm now curious about which ones didn't work out so well. What are some of the flops from the rev share model? But for folks that, know that they have box office sway and it's a good idea, this makes complete sense to me. And it reminds me of something potentially reliable that I heard on a podcast this last week. I was listening to the Las Culturistas podcast. It's an entertainment podcast. Reese Witherspoon was on it. And she was talking about how she moved from being an actress to increasingly being a producer, creating new films. And one of the movies was Gone Girl, which just did incredibly well at the box office. But she decided to kind of turn this into a really interesting business hack. So she created a book club where she would promote new books that came out to her audience and they'd all read it together. And she'd find these books that she wanted to option the rights for. She would promote that on her book club, get all these readers, make the author all this money, and then reach out to the author being like, hey, we just promoted your book. I'd love to talk about right of first refusal on turning that book into a movie. And so she, more frequently than not, gets ROFR rights on these books, turns them into a movie because she's producing it. She also often acts in it, makes a ton of money on the rev share. And it's just such a smart model that, I wish more people leaned into some of these like creative business ideas.
Kyle, was she in Gone Girl though?
That's the thing. She does act in a lot of these. Like she was in Wild. She's been in a number
She's
of these
Legally
books.
Blonde, right?
But she was not in Gone Girl. I don't think she would have been a good character. No one would have trusted that she could have been a potential murderer.
That was the one where Ben Affleck wouldn't wear a Yankees hat and shut down production.
Yeah, my man.
Cool. Next up, we've got a segment called Pricing in the Real World. Take it away.
All right, I've got an example here. Now, you remember MoviePass, CJ? Were you ever a subscriber to MoviePass?
No, but my neighbor growing up was. He was such a dork though, and he would go to like, he definitely got the most out of MoviePass. I think, did they get into financial trouble? Because he was going like 12 times a week.
Yeah, so back in the day, they had this idea that seemed brilliant at the time. Like you see Netflix, you see Spotify, these subscription businesses were everywhere. They charged $10 a month for essentially unlimited movies. Seemed like a great model. Customers loved it. They went from near zero to 3 million subscribers in a year. Not the best at math, but at $10 a month, that's like a 0 to 300 plus million run rate in 12 months. Like if this was a tech company, they'd be like the Cursor lovable, like multi-billion-dollar valuation. They'd be, the talk of the town. But of course, it all came crashing down. They were burning tens of millions of dollars a month and didn't have a VC willing to keep funneling in more money. But what I saw is that they're back now. And so they moved from an unlimited model to a credits-based pricing model. Plans are between $13 and $33 a month. Each includes a certain number of credits. If you don't use the credits, they actually roll over to the next month. And then you could use those credits for like 2 to 3 to 4 movies at a time. So your pricing in the real world is like, I think MoviePass pricing looks like just about every AI company's pricing these days.
It's like Netflix for people who want to get in their car and go watch it there.
Only with a lot more complicated of a pricing model.
So before it was unlimited, right? And now it's usage-based?
It's credits-based, yeah.
Okay. So credits-based versus usage-based, there's a distinction here, right? I think this is just important for people who are doing it from a software perspective too.
Yeah, the distinction is like if you think about usage-based might be like you can see 1 movie a month or 2 movies a month or 3 movies a month. The credits-based model is they're like, hey, you can get 100 credits and you could use those credits however you want in a month. Then certain movies are going to be 20 credits. Certain movies are going to be 40 credits. Maybe a movie in HD or IMAX that just hit the theaters is going to be 60 credits. And so it's kind of this currency that you can draw down as you want with more flexibility. It means both like it is in theory more flexible for the customer, but also is crazy complicated to try to manage.
I'm really fascinated by Audible's model with credits for when you want to buy books from the perspective of like, what does this mean for the author on the back end? Because I've spoken to a couple of authors and they said like it was kind of a raw deal for how much they got paid for that. It was more analogous to like a streaming deal, which doesn't pay well, to like a physical book deal, which is also a really shitty deal, by the way. After you're like, you get your earnout for like the amount they gave you up front. Like you usually only get like 10 to 20% of every book if you can even hit that. I wonder what this means for the movie industry on the back end. Like, are they basically not making much profit on these and it's like a longer term play?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that they had to pay out a good amount of money when MoviePass was first run. I think that's why they were burning tens of millions of dollars a month. But if I were in MoviePass's shoes, I'd try to use the audience as leverage to try to bring down that payout as much as possible.
That's so smart in the negotiation. Be like, yeah, we did have 300 million. Look at all these people want to watch your movies.
So CJ, what's your pricing in the real world this week?
Well, we kind of touched on it at the start of the show. I spend an ungodly amount on iced coffee beverages. Like we did like a trip for a couple of days to Nantucket over the summer. It was $7.50 for an iced coffee there. I recently got off the plane at JFK and it was $6.80 at Starbucks. And so like the price of these beverages are just through the roof. But then like I was talking to you offline, Kyle, and we were saying like it's crazy how discerning we'll be on like a purchase for like something that's $5 a month that's like useful information or something that will like improve my life. I feel like the rent is too damn high party. I want to be that guy, but for the price of iced coffee is too damn high.
What's your ceiling, or do you have a ceiling?
Were you the economics major here? I might need some help. This would be inelastic, right? Once it gets to double digits, then I have to seriously question my addiction. But anything under $10, I'm willing to just complain.
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat. If it's good, if it's bad, I will not pay much for it. If it is like legitimately good, strong cold brew, I will pay a lot for it, probably up to about $10, and then I will not hear the end of it. Pay beyond that, and I should probably just swap to like an energy drink or a Coke or something. But this reminds me, there was a famous, behavioral economic study back in the day where they put people in a scenario where, hey, imagine you're going up to buy a beer, right? And you could buy a beer in two places. So they didn't tell people at two places. They just put one group in place A, one group in place B. Place A was you're on the beach in front of a fancy resort. Like, how much would you pay for a beer there? And then the other one is you go to the convenience store, and then you can walk to the beach, the same beach that's in front of the resort. And for the same beer in the same location, people are willing to pay dramatically more when they think it's coming from the resort itself. And so what's fascinating for me is the willingness to pay is so much more about like psychology and the positioning you put around the product than it is about the product itself.
Yeah. And that's better than the example I was going to use, because you end up in the same destination. But like, I went to the Celtics versus Knicks in the playoffs, and I think it was like $16 for a beer. But I'm like, I'm already here. Like, kick me in the shorts. I'm going to pay whatever it is. But if I was just walking into a convenience store, like I'd probably only pay a fourth of that.
All right, next up, something you tried this week.
All right, something I tried this week, and we talked about this a little bit before with AI for email. So I've been writing about this company called Fixer. That's Fyxer. Last year, they went from 0 to $1 million ARR, and then this year they've exploded from 1 to 17 million just in the 9 months of this year. So really fascinating. The product, the pitch is you get an hour back every day from an AI email assistant. It's not a cheap product. Their plans are like $35 and $50 a month. So tried this out. It was a fascinating experience. So you download the app, and immediately they have a reply drafted for every email in your inbox. It's ready to go, roughly in your voice, and really actually not that bad of an email response. But the cognitive dissonance for me as like a control freak, opening my inbox to see a draft email from some of which are like things I did not want to reply to, I couldn't handle it. So probably not for me, but really cool product.
Are you an inbox zero type person?
Oh yeah, 100%.
And so was it also like replying to like new boots from LL Bean, like cool boots, LL Bean?
It was smart enough to not do that, thankfully. They've got a little toggle button, which I thought was pretty cool, of like, how aggressive of a replier are you, from like almost never replies unless it's really important to like always replies to everything. And so they set the default place, and then you can move it left or right. So I thought that was pretty cool. Thankfully, they were not that overeager replier, but there were some instances where you're like, there's some email back and forth we have with people where it's like, great, thanks. And then they reply back being like, no, thank you. And then you're like, oh, thank you. And it's like, when is this reply train going to ever end? And so you could certainly toggle it up to that level if you wanted to.
Imagine like it's two fixers and they're just profusely thanking each other for 6 emails.
Then all of a sudden the AIs fall in love.
Yeah.
Modern love story.
I don't know how I feel about this. I am looking for ways to become more efficient with like scheduling meetings and stuff. But I remember when I was in consulting, somebody gave me great advice. And mind you, like it was all manual answering back then. I was like really eager to respond to someone. He's like, no, wait till tomorrow. Like, because when you respond back, you're inviting another response, which is going to like keep the conversation going. So I think about the velocity of emails, and like if it's picking up the pace on whatever project you're working on, and if you're just like constantly inviting each other to talk on something at like a pace that you don't need to.
Yeah, I think that was a great learning. I think I learned that in consulting too. Frustrating for clients everywhere, but makes your life as a consultant way easier. Just slow roll some of the replies. I think the other thing that I learned was don't put too much in the email. Like, go for the chain of yeses instead, right? So like if you're asking for something, start with like a really simple ask, and then just like roll in more and more and more information. If you give all the ask up front, people are going to say no. But if you start with like a small ask, like quick question for you, you're going to like invite people to all of a sudden sign up to do something for you. So that was the other sneaky learning about email hygiene.
I mean, like, writing a great email is something they don't teach you in college, but it can really get you ahead because it gets you to yes faster with people. And it can also help you like weasel your way into like a room that you probably wouldn't have been in before. So I'm wondering if this next generation is going to lose like the game behind the game of why you're sending some of these emails versus just like giving all the autonomy to a bot to just go back and forth with another bot.
I've now got to see some of these cold emails you've sent CFOs to get on the podcast. We're going to have to take a look at some of those.
Your competitor who's trading at 9x forward revenue recently came on my podcast.
Brutal.
Yeah.
All right, CJ, I can see you jumping up and down like a racehorse. You've had 2 venti cold brews. You've got to go. I think this format has legs, right? I mean, I'm guesting on your podcast, but what do you think?
I'd love to have you back on. I think it could be its own thing, but we gotta see what the people want. So if you like this so far, like, subscribe, give us 5 stars. Our algorithmic overlords love it. Feel free to reach out to me and Kyle on LinkedIn. You know where to find us, and tell us that you actually like this format.
And if you don't, tell us that too.
Or don't. Run the Numbers is a mostly media production. Yelling and intro by Fat Joe. Artwork by Meg D'Alessandro. Show is executive produced by Ben Hillman. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of me, a guy who feeds his dog way too much ice cream and has a history of net operating losses. LOL. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe and give us 5 stars. It will take like 2 seconds and our algorithm overlords love it. Drink water, call your mom, and have a great day. Peace.